Novocastrian and one of his really old presentations, 2012 and the Future of Mankind. This is one of the slides he shared in that presentation. He said, Dr. George W. Kreil of the Cleveland Laboratories announced that he had discovered at the heart of every living organism a tiny nucleus of energy, all aglow, with temperatures ranging from 3,000 to 6,000 degrees of heat, which he called radiogens, or hot points, precisely akin to the radiant energy of solar matter. He affirmed that a tiny particle of the sun's power and radiance was lodged within the heart of every organic unit. So, keep that in mind.
I remember in The Matrix, the most profound scene was when you see the humans all plugged into the system for their heat, for their energy. They have become the machine's batteries. And while you were talking about that, that's what came up. But go on. I want you to press on.
Now we're shifting into a group which is known as the Luciferians. The following quote comes from a book called Witchcraft in the Middle Ages by Geoffrey Burton Russell. He writes, Geoffrey of Auxerre wrote about 1150 that the Catharists taught free sex, and the Council of Rheims in 1157 condemned sexual orgies on the part of the heretics. About 1180, Joachim of Flora, describing heretics he called Paterini, implies that they had orgies, and this judgment on the Paterines was confirmed by Walter Map, writing about 1182. The sectaries, Map claimed, put out the lights and after an obscene rite proceeded to indiscriminate intercourse, each person seizing the one next to him. Allen of Lilly makes a connection between dualism and immorality explicit. The dualists say, he reported, that a person must use every means at his disposal to cleanse himself of everything earthly or diabolical clinging to him. In order to rid themselves of concern for the body, they engage in random sexual intercourse. Thus, as Cope points out, they abused the body in order to show their contempt for it, and the Catharist dislike of marriage was a result not only of their horror of imprisoning souls and bodies, but also the respect that marriage accords the body. The Luciferians, who appeared in Germany from 1227, and the Adamites of 14th and 15th century Bohemia also held, it is reported, sexual orgies in subterranean places, and argued that it was permissible to do there what was sin above the ground. The Bohemian Luciferians were similar to the Austrian. They had, however, an elaborate hierarchy with an archbishop and 7 bishops, each of whom ruled 300 heretics. They rejected the church, the pope, the idea of the resurrection. They argued that Lucifer would one day triumph and lead them into heaven with him. They met at night, and with lights extinguished, the bishop led them in sexual orgies. The Lucifer appeared to them as the king of heaven, arrayed in splendid crown, scepter, and shining clothes, and followed by many retainers. After they had practiced a kind of blasphemous communion, the lights were extinguished, and each took the one next to him. So I'm looking at this. You can see that they're messing around with the idea of light. So they're going underground, and that's implying that they're going in a place of darkness, which there's no way that the sunshine is going to, shine down there.
Yeah.
But they bring torches with them, which are a form of light. But before they start doing their thing, they put the torches out. So it's the extinguishing of light that's going on. But then after they put the lights out, that's when Lucifer shows up and he's the shining one. So there's manipulation going here. with the light concept. So I wanted to draw attention to that because, like I said, you fuck with light, you fuck with gravity. And these guys are fucking with the light, obviously.
That's right.
Now, also important to pay attention to here is the dates. 1150, 1157, 1180, 1182, 1227. This was shortly after the Crusades. I think the first crusade was 1118. So after the Crusades is when you start getting these heretics popping up. I've been doing some interviews with Yaki Hagstrom where we get into this a bit because even the crusade itself, something happened after the Crusades where groups from the Middle East actually started sneaking over into the West and popping up here. So I would say that the Luciferians here and these Catharists and these different heretic groups probably came from the Middle East.
Yeah.
Even though it's not saying that, and it won't say that explicitly in the historical records, you got to check out Ralph Ellis's work. You'll see what I'm talking about. There's an important underground thing happening after the Crusades where these really sinister people are weaseling their way into the West after the Crusades. And eventually they pretty much start taking over different societies. They start infiltrating the Vatican.
And that this would be a Gnostic cult we're talking about here, right?
Well, the interesting thing, you look at the dates I just mentioned, 1150, 1157, 1180, 1182, 1227, that time period, that is after the Crusades. And I would venture to say that the reason these groups are popping up around this time is because of the groups from the East who were sneaking in to Europe because of that Iron Curtain I talked about, where the church knew the real story about Jesus and the bloodlines he was connected to. They rescripted his biography into the pauper Prince of Peace, who says that you need to turn the other cheek and give unto Caesar what is Caesar's. They wrote the Gospels, handed that to the Jews, so they would have happy, nice Jews who wouldn't try to launch another rebellion against Rome. That's why they created it. But they collapse, Roman Empire collapse, church emerged. They were going on the Gospels as the basis for the Christian religion. They needed that Iron Curtain there to keep the bloodlines from the East out because they were the ones with the stories and the weird practices, the cultic practices, the Cybele cult. And we're about to get even deeper into that because Cybele is the origin of the etymology of Kabbalah comes from Cybele.
That's right. And it comes from fire, right? The word Kabbalah.
Another association with light, the manipulation of light.
I believe some of that is dog whistled in the Hammer horror movies when the main antagonist has a fascination with the East and antiques come from the Middle East. It's giving you every indication that this person is fully entrenched in their belief systems, whatever cultures from the cults. It's bled straight through and it's infected him and he's brought it back and he's trying to use that mystical knowledge to prey on people.
Yeah, and the Washington, D.C., the layout of it is the seal of Astaroth, by the way. That comes from the Middle East. There's nothing Western about it.
It's the same name as the deity that the cult in the Hammer horror movie to the devil a daughter. That is the golden figure. That's the name of it right there.
Wow. Yeah, I forgot about that. It was, actually, yeah. I remember that now.
And that's a different Hammer horror movie to the one I'm talking about where the antagonist has this cloakroom or antique room full of this Middle Eastern paraphernalia, mystical paraphernalia. So, okay. The more I hear about these pernicious Gnostic sects, the creepier it gets. Because I don't know if you've read The Trauma of Birth by Otto Rank, the Freudian psychologist.
Yes, I have.
Who was disowned by Freud. This book explains a lot, but also is terrifying when you put into context what these Gnostic cults are doing. Because, like, how traumatized do you have to be from the very beginning of your life to even enter into a system of ceremonies and practices that these Gnostic sects were doing, like the milking of children for their bodily fluids and then imbibing them with other intoxicating effects, which I do believe Otto Rank talks about this. He talks about this really disgusting, these acts, which go all the way back to the rites of passage that were part of the Bach saga. It's complicated and it involves the excretion of bodily fluids and then being passed on to the community elder and him imbibing them as a symbol of community and togetherness. Whereas what these Gnostic cults seem to be doing is taking that very arcane, very, very ancient ceremony and inverting it, flipping it on its head, and using it to escape reality. You were saying that they want to strip away every earthly element that's in them. Redemption through sin, this idea that you can escape this world and escape the birth, life, and death cycle through these debauched ceremonies, orgies, imbibing fluids, all for the threnody of it and for the immersion in this act of utter perversion to completely strip any trace of humanity, and humanity being the thing because they see humanity and the earth, the very space that they inhabit, as a prison. They see their body as a prison. As one of the precepts of the Gnostic religion is that the creator was flawed and he created a universe for us to live in, which was a prison, and he created our bodies, which is like a prison within a prison.
Well, they were operating from that destructive secondary layer. So they were having these impulses and emotions. It's the emotional plague at work. Whereas what is described in the Bach saga, although it sounds very strange and gross, maybe to some people, it at least was. It was not emotional plague driven. It was from the core, even though it's
They
not.
weren't trying to escape. They were trying to
Right.
ground themselves.
Yeah, it was core impulses, the core of the human. So it wasn't distorted, and even though our standards today might look at it as gross, it's important to just make the distinction because it can get really heady when you really start going down the rabbit hole with it and like their weird theologies and everything. You just sometimes you just got to draw back and say, is the stuff coming out of this person's mouth coming from their core, or is it coming from their destructive secondary layer impulses? And it's obvious that the Gnostic framework and ideas and everything is coming from distorted secondary layer, destructive, confused.
This magic was a tool. And I also listen to what is being said about these Gnostic cults, and I see the inversion. I see the difference between them. I look at films like A Devil to a Daughter, that Hammer horror movie, and the occult ritual they perform with the golden crucifix and the way they hover it over her. And you were talking about it affecting light. And as we know, gold has properties in it which affect light. And when you're hovering this thing over a person's energy field, their electromagnetic field, their aura, if you like, what is that doing to that person in that ritual? And when she's being hypnotized to believe that the elder of that cult is that god of light that they are worshipping in this ceremony. It's distortions on distortions. It's schisms upon schisms. It's forcing of the splitting of a satanic ritual abuse victim so that they can control that split personality that's been separated and create a personality that's dedicated and committed to the cult and will become suicidal if you try and detach them from that.
And that's what I'm getting into next.
Go ahead, man.
The next quote comes from an Irish source, and he's talking about the Satanists in Ireland. He lived during the Irish Troubles, which was like a conflict between the North and the South of Ireland, conflict between Protestants and Catholics. It was a pretty mixed up conflict, but this guy discovered that a lot of the things going on behind the scenes were being directed by Satanists, and they were actually directing things on both sides of the conflict. So this is what he says about them. He says,
Okay.
I will now explain how they managed to persuade men and women to set up their kin to be butchered by the Satanists. These are the methods used by the Irish witches. However, witches in other countries might use different tactics. Firstly, someone does not become a killer overnight. It takes time and effort to literally transform a normal person into an unfeeling killer. A killer who will think nothing of murdering anyone, or bringing their children, brothers, sisters, mothers, or fathers to be murdered in the vilest satanic rituals. The coven members choose suitable sacrifices and plan ahead for a specific Sabbath in the future. Once the sacrifice is chosen, coven witches target a confidant or close relation of the proposed sacrifice. The confidant has to be trusted completely by the sacrifice. A coven member who is well schooled in the ways of corruption and sexual matters then makes approaches to the confidant. The male or female witch seduces the confidant over a period of time using sexual techniques long known to the witches, which hook the confidant, making him or her completely dependent on the witch. These sexual techniques were known centuries ago. In the 1920s, Madame de Neglauska, a Russian writer and occultist who was an associate of MacGregor, Mathers, and Crowley, was knowledgeable in these secret sex magic techniques. I will not go into detail, but the gist of it is one partner is left hanging after sex, feeling completely inadequate and dependent on the other. Neglauska believed salvation or complete enlightenment could be achieved through extreme sex. Satanists practice tantric sex and strange bondage techniques, such as knotted cords around the neck to restrict blood flow, can give psychic vision. Michael Hutchence, an Australian rock star and friend of Kylie Minogue, died while attempting something similar. Once the confidant is hooked, dependent on the witch seducer, the next step is to desensitize the confidant to violence, bloodshed, and even murder. This is achieved by showing the confidant real-life snuff videos and movies. Because the confidant is completely under the control of the witch seducer, he or she will do anything to please the witch. Gradually, month at a time, the confidant is drawn in deeper and deeper. The next step is to enroll the confidant into the coven, and the witch brings the confidant to the coven's next Sabbath meet.
You know what I'm going to say? A film came to mind, and it's strange because I've already used the phrase as well. A film by David Lynch called The Lost Highway. It features a guy who lives in Los Angeles, and there's either 2 or 3 guys who play the same person, but when he switches personalities, when he breaks from reality, it switches to the next. So it's Bill Pullman, then it's another guy after that. And all the way throughout it, he's slowly losing his mind because this actress she's playing tricks on him. She's playing games. I believe Yogi Hagström, in one of your podcasts with him, said that the word for spell in Swedish is akin to game, or the spell means games, and she's playing these games with him all the way throughout the film. He breaks from reality. He ends up killing somebody. Towards the end of the movie, she takes him all the way to the moment of climax, and then she tears away from him and says to him, "You will never have me," and then walks away from him. The way you said that technique of leaving him hanging, I remember seeing that film, The Lost Highway. This is why I mentioned the Lost Highway syndrome, because it completely breaks him, and he's left driving away in his car, shifting from the two actors that have played him throughout the movie. And you see him, this jittery set of images which show him flicking between both actors in the car and driving furiously down this pitch black highway. There's something really dark about that movie, but David Lynch he's a mixed bag. I know people love him and hate him. I understand why. I kind of have a love-hate relationship with him as well. But he's definitely talking about something like what you were talking about there, that someone can be broken like that. And like the plague that's already in them, it's starting to grow and metastasize. And they just tinker with a person's insides to make that worse. So it takes over them until they have no control, until they break from reality.
Yeah, I don't know if you've perused any of the pickup artists or any of the manosphere stuff.
I have,
Talking
yeah.
a lot about shit tests and the way that women will test you and put these little tests and challenges and whatnot.
Oh, yeah.
So we have a natural inclination to permit testing to a degree. This is like the tests are just like bottomless pit. So
she can
those
drain
movie
you of all your
directors,
energy.
yeah, the movie directors know what's up. It also reminds me of a movie called Get Carter, and they're in the car. Yeah, he's in the car with that chick, and like she's driving real fast, and she's changing the stick shift, changing gears, and she's like caressing the stick shift. Yeah, it's and The Prisoner that
Did you know that Get Carter was filmed in my hometown?
really.
Yeah, it was filmed in
Oh,
Newcastle in England.
oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
The old
It's
one, right?
yeah, it's set in Newcastle, yeah.
I gotta watch that movie again.
Yeah, it'll give you a good insight to this place. It uses all the iconic places, so definitely watch it.
The Prisoner
Go ahead.
series has one of the final episodes where that chick is after him. I think it's called like Death something about death.
Yeah.
But a lot of the symbolism is sexual, but she's trying to kill him.
Yeah.
So there's that sexual predatory sort of play on things. But as we're seeing now, it can get out of hand sometimes.
You were talking about how these occultists use this to their own advantage and know how to hone it to get them into states, highly energetic states, or psychic states. David Lynch, I've seen a clip of him where he did this in his own time, by the way. He built a man-made cave in the middle of Los Angeles, on the Los Angeles hills. And he got one of his friends, who's a DJ, to do this pulsing drone music. And inside this cave, this girl is roaming around, and she's half naked. She has her breasts out and everything. And she just walks by him every now and then. And David Lynch is hooked, like he doesn't take his eyes off her. And she just comes in every now and then, passes them. That's exactly what she's been told to do. And all the while they're filming this and interviewing David Lynch as well on what he's doing. I can't remember what he's talking about, but he's talking about the whole artistic process he's engaged in. Meanwhile, he's being tantalized in a cave with a half naked chick walking around. He's also naked himself, getting extremely aroused to the point, but then she's ripping it away. She's walking away from him, and she does this a number of times. And I couldn't help but think of, yes, it's being used against, they're using it on the recruits for these cults, but they're also using it themselves to excite themselves to further their career or whatever. But also, I think in David Lynch's case, there was something far deeper. Some kind of sorcery definitely was going on there.
Well, it's a science that is used to hook the male, because obviously, I mean, it doesn't take
A rocket scientist to figure out, yeah.
to figure out that if a chick is doing that, if it's working on them, it's working on them. However, you got to look at the female. She's been put in a position she's power tripping, is what's going on there. And, Stefan Molyneux has stated over and over and over again that power is more addictive than any drug. So these groups that teach women how to do this and put them into those scenarios, you're basically taking a woman and giving her an experience of power that can end up being very addictive, more than likely.
That's interesting. I wasn't paying that much attention to the girl, but now that I'm thinking about it, it's almost as if she was a sex slave. I mean, we don't know what happened to her afterwards, but I mean, David Lynch is 60 odd years old and she's parading around. He's just oogling at her the whole time. But at the same time, you're right. It's a power trip for her and the whole experience. What is that doing to the woman? And she's getting paid to do all this. What effect is that going to have her character in the end?
Right. Yeah. No, I'm not going to say sex slave. I don't want to put a victim dynamic on
exactly.
it. But I will
Yeah.
say that there's definitely a power dynamic and an emotional power dynamic. She's power tripping, and power is more addictive than any drug. So
One thing's for sure. It was creepy as hell.
Yeah, it's just another way to hook. I mean, so the guy is getting hooked by the girl, and the girl is getting hooked by the power tripping that she's doing. It's sort of like the devil card and the tarot. You got the guy and the girl standing down there, and they're both chained to the fucking devil.
The whole creepiness of it, and how beautiful women manage to put an invisible leash around men, and the mystique of their beauty, how it traps men. We say we want beauty, and at the same time, I think we secretly hate beauty because we know that secretly it enslaves us if we become admirers of that. And also, I think there's a disdain. Women have disdain for men, a secret disdain because of that as well, because they know that you're just a sucker. If you're falling for the whole beauty trick, then you fail at the first step. But then again, that's a lot of what women are looking for at the same time because they're so mixed up.
Yeah, I've been thinking about that myself. It's basically a distorted situation that large swaths of the planet are dealing with right now. It's pretty messed up. But yeah, the next quote comes from an article I found online from mysteriousuniverse.org. The Sinister Saga of a Dragon Cult. This is just a small clipping of the article.
Okay.
It says that Aleister Crowley was linked to all manner of secret societies and the occult, and to Loch Ness itself. These were further factors which led Holliday to suspect the presence of a dragon worshipping group in the area, as well as attempts by the secret group to try and invoke supernatural serpents from the dark waters of the loch. The mysterious group at Loch Ness, which was said to worship Tiamat, a terrifying Babylonian snake goddess or sea dragon, who was revered as much as she was feared. In Babylonian myths, Tiamat is a huge, bloated female dragon that personifies the saltwater ocean, the water of chaos. The conjurer had to take great heed when summoning the spirit form of Tiamat, lest violent, deadly forces might be unleashed. So Tiamat is, from what I understand, an actual planetary body that used to exist.
Yeah, that's right.
So it's associated with the cataclysm because that planet was actually destroyed. So
I heard it was a watery planet, like an ocean planet as well, which if it could really collided with this planet, it would have seemed as if it were being attacked by a Leviathan, like a water dragon.
yeah, I've heard that that's what the Great Floods came from. So have you heard of Randall Carlson?
I haven't.
Oh, dude, you're gonna love listening to some Randall Carlson. So he's a Freemason. He's from Georgia. He has some podcasts out there, and he's talking about the floods that have happened, the Great Floods, which there's been like so many mega floods. Like, for example, the city of Portland, Oregon is a mile below what it used to be, like the surface of the ground. It used to be a mile higher than it is currently. Got washed out by a fucking mega flood. It's been a while since I've listened to him, but he's got all of this crazy information, man, about these super floods that have happened in the past.
Yeah.
But there's all this water that potentially can hit our planet at any given time, create a new flood. It's possible that comes from Tiamat, the water planet, which used to be intact. It's like now it's just floating out there like big frozen chunks of ice that could drift into our orbit at any time and cause another flood.
No, and I find it very weird. Also, I've talked about this in the past, but there are 12 seahorse heads on top of the Civic Center in Newcastle. And I just find that there's 12 constellations in the zodiac. They're in a circle, just as the zodiac is displayed, but they're all of the water element. They're linked with Poseidon, the god of the seas. They carry Poseidon's chariot. They pull Poseidon's chariot. And also, Commons Beaumont talks about the importance of Cetus, the constellation Cetus. And I believe that these 12 seahorse heads on top of the Civic Center relate to Cetus. I think they relate to times of catastrophe, just as Poseidon was known as the Earth Shaker. He was a god of earthquakes. That's what it means. The Earth Shaker. He didn't just create tidal waves, but he also created what accompanied them, which was these massive quakes, which created massive upheavals and destroyed civilizations. And I think these 12 seahorse heads are a constant reminder. This thing was built in the 1960s. And one of the symbolic meanings of the seahorse is rigidity and following the rules and being an upstanding citizen, always doing what you're told. I think that is partially how they do it as well. I think they traumatize people into following the rules. They remind on a constant basis what will happen to them if they don't. And as much as these leaders, these elites, like to use solar symbols to promote how amazing they are and how glorious they are and how they're like a shining light, they also hold over us the fact that they could call down cataclysm, they could call down crisis at any moment. And so you better do as you're told. Otherwise,
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? So it's like talking about this conjurer who's conjuring Tiamat. And it says he had to take great heed when summoning the spirit form of Tiamat, lest violent, deadly forces might be unleashed. So it's like they know that it's dangerous.
yeah, go to
So that
war.
kind of goes with that following the rules kind of thing that you're talking about, because it's
Yeah,
that anxiety that the ancient people
follow the
faced,
rules.
where they really thought that they had to do certain and follow certain rules to avoid another catastrophe.
True.
And the priesthood took advantage of that.
And of course, when they was sending people over the seas to die on the beaches of Normandy, all they had to say was, if you don't do this, the women will hand you white feathers. You will be known as cowards. And as Stefan Molyneux brought up in one of his podcasts, that's it. That's the end of your genetic line. No more babies for you. You were a coward during the war. You didn't die on this beach, so you don't deserve to procreate anymore.
I wonder if those women were power tripping, if it gave them a certain feeling of power to know that all they had to do was threaten a man with handing them a white feather, and that gave them the power to see that man go and run up a beach with machine guns firing at him.
And if that didn't get you, they'd send you to jail if you avoided the draft, I think, unless you had a good excuse. And so, yeah, it's either you don't procreate, you become known as a coward, you go to jail. And those are your three choices. And the third one being go to war. And pretty much certain that you're going to die. But yeah, the women power tripping. Yeah, I wonder how that made them feel. I noticed that they don't like to talk about that much, but they did still talk about that in primary school when I was a boy. So I wonder if they still do that. I bet they don't talk about the things that we're talking about in the side notes, though.
Yeah. Next quote comes from Michael Desarian and his Atlantis presentation. He says, John Dee was one of the most powerful black magicians in the world, and he worked with an Irish clairvoyant called Edward Kelly. He had the greatest collection of books, more than was in any library for hundreds of years. John Dee was a leader of British intelligence. He opened up a pan-dimensional portal. There are magical principles. He used a system of magic known as Enochian magic. In John Dee's system of magic, he was able to open up portals literally to other dimensions, to oversouls. John Dee was given volumes of information. They even say that his consciousness was frazzled because of this information that was coming down. He had other people all over Europe, famous magicians in Europe, all working on deciphering this information that came down. The Oversouls told John Dee that they had to learn how to create matter from energy, but first they had to learn how to release energy from matter. They also had to learn the mysteries of silicon. So John Dee, he's known as the first 007. He worked for Queen Elizabeth I, and he signed all of his documents 007. So his system of magic, Enochian magic, like I said, he worked for Elizabeth I for England. Ever since his time, there's been one 007 for England because he trained someone. And that person, before he died, he trained someone. That person, before he died, he trained someone. They've all been carrying forward this Enochian magic and how to use it up until now. And the most recent one that was trained is named Tim Rifat. And this guy, he claims that he is the last one who's ever trained. And now, now he's making YouTube videos. Can't you fucking believe that shit? But yeah, this dude, so apparently he had a falling out with England. So now he kind of, as I guess he's not going to train another one for England. So England's kind of shit out of luck, and he does black magic on them now.
Right,
But
yeah.
anyways, I have some commentary from him.
Yeah. Okay.
So this following quote comes from Tim Rifat himself, the last 007 trained in the Enochian magic for England. This is what he says. Love is the thing that changes the basal point, the resting point of the Higgs field. That's why aliens farm humans for love. Humans are just love generators, and they're all tuned to give their energy to the end user, the Elohim, Greys, Crown 007, etc. And simply put, all love affairs end up destructively, because even if you don't fall out of love, you get the negative one, which is death, and the anti-good one, The missing part of all of the stuff that you can get online or in books is that magicians like myself were trained primarily in ritual and all of the technology of sucking up magic, so that when we carry out our rituals, reality changes in confirmation with our will. But for you, with no access to magic and locked out of the system because you've never been given access to it, you can simply be a normal person going to Freemasonic monuments, trying to suck out the magic from them, going to churches, trying to suck out the magic from them, try and suck out the magic from Illuminati events like the Super Bowl or Olympics. None of it works because the magic of the Illuminati is that they lock out the non-Illuminati from using the magic. Being able to collect and store magic was developed by John Dee. His colleague, Kelly, communed with entities that called themselves Enochian angels, and these Enochian angels taught Kelly Enochian magic. Enochian magic was the basis of Elizabeth I and England's change from being the poorest country in Europe, about to be conquered by the Spanish, to the richest country in Europe. The Enochian angels taught Kelly how to store magic and quartz crystals in his crystal ball. How? Well, when he was watching them, they would form a vortex, the angels dancing around the head of a pin. And the dancing of the angels in a vortex would be clockwise to store magic, which would be used to do positive things. And they would dance in a vortex in an anti-clockwise direction. You could store magic, which was negative, which could be used to make people ill with the evil eye, give them boils, warts, give them diseases, bring them bad luck, etc. So John Dee got the technology to utilize magic with quartz crystals, which have the Enochian angels inputted into them. In Russia, these vortexes, which can store magic, are called torsion fields. And these torsion fields can travel at speeds which are almost instantaneous, much faster than the speed of light, can pass through any shielding. You can project the vortex out of your crystal at a target. The Russians got this torsion field concept from the Nazis, the Annenerb. The Nazis, of course, got it from occult books. Remember witches dancing around in a circle? I met the leader of the Wiccans. He was a warlock, and he explained to me that the Wiccans had wanted to stop people accessing supernatural spirit magic, and had gone around to Stonehenge and all the power spots and simply moved the vortexes of power, which they were generating, into psi space, and then moved them into other locations. So you get a coven of witches, they go to Stonehenge, then they do a ritual which would have to involve a ritual sacrifice. In the UK, we have endemic child murder. We've got 567,000 official female rape molestations, 102,000 male child rape molestations, and many child murders. And the power of a child murdered in a black mass can open up a big anti-clockwise vortex, the Luciferic force, which when you input into Stonehenge, which is, of course, a big clockwise vortex to produce loads of energy from the Stargate there, you can see that it will cancel out the vortex from Stonehenge. And remember, all these Satanists use extreme methods on the children. Kathy O'Brien and loads of other people have documented these things. And of course, when you get a clockwise vortex and an anti-clockwise vortex, they cancel each other out, which means that it is very easy then to move the vortex once you've canceled it. So the circle of witches can then move to another location, and at the location of the estate of the Wiccan, they can then simply hold hands where they collect in the left hand with their hand pointing upwards and push out with their hand pointing downwards, and then move the power around in a clockwise direction, dance around in a clockwise direction, etc. They then can restore the vortex in the estate of the Wiccan. So when people go to Stonehenge, there is no vortex there because the dead child's soul acts as a block. So when the vortex tries to manifest there, the dead child's soul blocks it, and instead it's diverted to the estate where the Wiccans have set up their power circle. Rather like putting a dam in the river and then diverting the flow to another direction, using the dead child's soul as a dam. That's Tim Refat.
So a few things about Stonehenge, I've been watching the Prehistory guys on YouTube. And these guys are two English guys who go around a lot of the famous sites and not so famous sites in and around Britain, Ireland, Scotland. And they look at the stone circles, they talk about what they know. And they have found evidence that this igneous blue rock, volcanic rock that Stonehenge is built out of, it comes from Wales, but the stones in Avebury come from a place called Cheviot Hills, not far from where I live. It's in Northumberland. It's on the border of Scotland and England. And in this outcrop called the Dunyan Crags, this outcrop of blue igneous stone, it's a special type of volcanic sandstone found in the Cheviot Hills. It was dragged all the way from Scotland to the bottom of England in Wiltshire. And the way that the prehistory guys, in their mainstream view, carefully but gently, and let people decide for themselves, but they say that this is clearly evidence that they were bringing their home, the place that they loved, the place that they knew. They were bringing elements of that and bringing it to this place in Wiltshire, and they also did it at Stonehenge. But in Avebury, in particular, if you were to do a study, Commons Beaumont talks about this, and also Harold Bailey talks about this in his book Archaic England. They bring up this guy called Stuckley, who mapped the whole place out and made his own interpretations. I like this idea that they were bringing these elements that they knew and loved to this place. And as we were talking about in the beginning, Abram, the Hiram, who set up his war factories down in the south because they had to emigrate, he brought this love, these remnants, with them because they were forced out and they had to move. This became their power base in Wiltshire and Somerset, and according to Commons Beaumont, became the site of a great many invasions because of the war factories that were there. It became the powerhouse that gave these ancient patriarchs their means of holding as much dominion as the Romans did back then, and it made them such a formidable powerhouse that resisted the Romans for so long. But now these sites, because they're tied to estates and rich cults that have been here for a very, very, very long time, they've been misaligned. They could have been from the start. We have no idea just to the extent what intentions these ancient arch-maguses were up to. But just the idea that they're now being used to suck energy, love energy. If you even just think about the word love, it comes from Jove, Jupiter, God, the El, the Els, the Elohim. And if you don't understand what that means, then every time you say the word love, you're assigning that, you're spelling that feeling, that emotion, that energy. You're spelling it and you're dedicating it in movies, in the music that people listen to, this horrible music that talks about love endlessly and talks about how much I love you and how much I want to be with you and how much love I have. And it's all about the love. Who's got the love? Who's got the love? You've got the love. It's like this constant amplification. It's this channeling of catharsis, funneling it into these streams, which are then fed off from these elites. When you were talking there about love, how we're like love factories, think about the Green Mile at the end when John Coffey's about to die and he says to Tom Hanks, they kill him with their love. But that scene comes to mind. They kill them with their love. What did he mean by that? Was that just a throwaway line? Or was there something more profound that Spielberg was hinting at there, dog whistling about there? Well, I think so. I think he knows. I think he knows exactly what love is. And we should possibly start using a different word for this emotion before we curse ourselves, for like we have been for a long time. And people who listen to this music or watch these films, which is all about love, it's all about and love is all that matters, etc. Well, really, is it? Or are they trying to condition you into giving all of your real love away so they can use it, so they can feed from it?
Yeah, it's like a certain percentage of the love gets siphoned off. So it's not even, yeah. I wonder how many of those songs would change if the people writing the songs realized why their love isn't coming back,
Yeah,
100%. It seems like a lot of the music is about the music itself is
killing you
supposedly
softly, right?
supposedly talking about love, but at the same time it's kind of whining about the fact that it's not coming back the way they think it should. Well, wonder if more people realized that it was getting diverted into other channels. People maybe would stop whining about it so much and actually really look into where's that love going.
Yeah, think about the Riddler in the film Batman Forever, where he's built this machine that can suck off people's brain waves. But what are people doing when they're at home and they're staring at their screen? Well, they're in this like dazed state, aren't they? They're like big, massive smiles on their face, looking all goofy, like they're in their safe zone, like they're just all cozy. Meanwhile, the Riddler's feeding off all this energy. He's getting hyped from it. He's getting energized. He's aroused. He's taking all of their secrets and he's just growing more powerful by the day. And the people love it. They can't get enough of it. Everybody wants to buy one of these things and give it away, right? Give it away, give it away, give it away now, as the Red Hot Chili Peppers said.
Well, shit, if the love wasn't getting siphoned off, then Red Hot Chili Peppers would have already declared world peace and everything by now.
Yeah, like when you start to break it down, like you get these songs come back to you, like when you start really thinking deeply about
No, I
these
like
love
Red Hot
songs.
Chili Peppers, kind
Yeah,
of, you know?
yeah, oh yeah, me too, right?
But I mean, it's like, where'd all that fucking love go? Somebody suck that shit up for damn sure, you know?
What are they saying when they're saying give it away, give it away, give it away now?
Right, right. Free
What a
love.
yeah, free
The
love.
Luciferians were preaching free love back in 1120, you know? Like
Wow.
the fucking 1100s. Yeah, free love, man. We're
Yeah, it's all new.
Luciferians.
It's all new, Caleb. What are you talking about? This stuff's only been around since the 60s, right?
Right.
Right.
So I have a statement from a confidential source about covens in the United States. So he says, in the covens, you got young groups of kids who are just getting into it. They coax them into it, telling them that you can use your energy and use the energy of the trees. And it's all a lie. It just brings them in. In each circle or coven, there's a higher person that runs the circle. They're attached to a higher level. And they get these circles and kids to sit around and do circles and things, not realizing that the energy they are putting out is just being sucked up and used by somebody else. They use the energy to feed their demons or do other things. They can feed on negative energy. They can feed on positive energy until they drain them of all their energy, and then they move on. And Satanism, it's all about control, mind control, body control, control of the spirit. And the upper ones are the only ones who have the knowledge of how to do all this. The lower ones get a little glimpse of it. So they transmit the stolen energy from person to person. They can even transfer that energy to someone far away, even in another country. If you've got a circle of 200 people, you got one guy there who's the one. Nobody knows because they all think that it is one circle all doing it together. Bullshit. There's one guy there who knows what's happening. So yeah, they're all holding hands or giving it away, giving it away, giving it away now. Then there's one guy there who's sucking it all up. And his intent is to transmit it to the higher energy that can open it up and get it out to the galaxy, the universe, or whatever. A lot of these locations and events are a feeding ground. They open up these portals of energy and feed on these people. They go there with good intent, but leave feeling drained and feeling bad. They start them out young. Most of the people in these circles don't know what's going on. Knowledge is power. That's why they got the magic books that only certain individuals are allowed to read. All these people who are in black magic think they are going up the line. They think they are going to get more knowledge, but they're being tricked because the knowledge they're given is fake. But to us, it feels real. They all want more power. They boost their egos so they can harvest energy from someone who's ego tripping. And then when their ego's torn down, they can harvest the energy from that. As long as it takes them up to a higher position, they'll take out everybody they know. They don't even care. I'll also say that this statement is confirming the quotes I've shared up to this point. But this person doesn't even fucking read. This is with their own eyes, man, what they're reporting on. They get them believing it's all about nature. We're all a part of nature. We're all part of the same energy as nature. So we can all sit here and think about nature and produce this nice, good, positive energy. Meanwhile, you got someone over here taking that positive energy and using it. Just because it's positive energy doesn't mean he can't use it for negative. That gives him more power. He's not going to tell these people what he's doing. If you want to go and study energy, do your own. Trust what you know. Don't trust what this guy over here is telling you just because he's been in it for 50 years. He's been in it for 50 years for a reason. It's so subtle, nobody knows it. They don't want people to connect and see what's going on around them. If they saw what was going on, they could actually change. That's the last thing they want, is for people to see what's going on. About 80% of the people in these circles don't know what they're being used for. So he goes on to explain how they set up these small rings of people and they're oblivious. Like 80% of the people there are oblivious. They don't know that two of the people that they're actually sitting with are connected to this hidden hierarchy. So this is actually going on in the United States. You know, this confirms a lot about what Ted Gunderson was exposing. Ted Gunderson actually focused on physical crimes, you know, people who would actually get sacrificed, people who would actually get murdered. What's going on here is something more subtle. It's black magic, it's energy manipulation. So there's not necessarily body bags associated with it, or not physical murders. But, you know, at a certain point, I kind of thought, I thought the notion of like, you know, maybe murdering somebody with black magic or um, feeding demons or things like that, or conjuring demons, was kind of like bullshit. But I'm coming to a point where I can kind of understand, even scientifically, like how that actually is a reality.
The way I see it up there, okay, so they're using the love of nature to get people to follow their rules, to get people to do what they want, and to also feed off them, and to also create situations where they can harvest more energy. But then there's the other side of it as well. These cults that are so debaucherous that they are going against nature. So they're using this hatred of nature. And what is nature anyway? Well, nature is the mother. Mother Nature, Mother Earth. And there's a theme there, right? And it's the same thing with these cave cults, the cave obsessed cults. They go underground to do their ceremonies, to be closer to the mother. But also, if you were to look at it from the hatred of nature and the debaucherous cults, where it's all about stripping them of any humanity, they go into the mother's womb to defile it. So either way, they're getting the same result, just using different motives. But even a hatred of the mother stems originally from a love of the mother that was denied or neglected. That's why they seek the safety of the womb, or they seek to pollute it. And I find it interesting, again, that lure, the lure of women, the lure of beauty, from a Freudian perspective, the way that a mother's beauty imprints on a man, that affects him for the rest of his life. That affects who he falls in love with. That affects his relationships with all the females around him. And I think that deserves careful attention, something that we'll probably have to parcel out a lot more, because I'm very much interested in psychology, although I'm a bit nervous to talk about it because I need to brush up on a few things. But this psychology, it's really important. I think I heard a term recently, which I'd heard before, but the way in which it was said, it was quite profound. Matrophobia. That's stemming from the love of nature, a blind love of nature. That stems from matrophobia, because that, again, is propitiation. It's I must love the mother even though she can hurt me, even though she can kill me at any time. Going into a cave, that reminds you immediately of where you are, whose dominion you're in. I also think entering these stone circles, that evokes that love for Mother Nature, the cosmic mother. I like to break down words, and if you break down the word magnet, you get mag and net. And mag and meg came from words meaning and alluding to Cetus or the Leviathan or the dragon. Mag, meg, mega, Long Meg, the stone circle, Long Meg in Cumbria. Other places like that, in Northumbria, again, along Hadrian's Wall, there's a place called Old Meggie's Dean. These words, they tie back into places that were devoted to goddess worship. The Leviathan, the dragon, the great mother. Magnet, before I was saying, it's like this underlying force that pervades the universe, the electromagnetic spectrum. Who made the word magnet? I haven't even looked this up, or which culture coined it, because it's such an apt word to use. The magnet, the mega net, the giant spider's web of the great mother spider of the universe that holds it all together, and which she can pull the strings at any time to cut that off. It ties back to the Norns, the Fates. And even on the site, Old Meggie's Dean is a temple to a goddess called Coventina, and in it was found an altar with 3 female figures on it. Well, of course, 3 female figures. What does that lead back to? The 3 witches of Macbeth, going back even further, the ancient Greeks with their 3 fates, and of course, the 3 Norns. So we have all that.
The 3, I forget what they're called. In Irish mythology, you have the 3 Megans, I think they're called.
Really? Oh, wow.
Yeah, like these three witches. Like when Nuada gets his hand cut off, before the next war, they put him to sleep and create a new arm for him, but it's the 3 witches that do it for him. They use their magic to create a new arm for him. But you have those 3 women. And I always thought it weird with the Conan the Barbarian. You got those 3 dudes, but they all have long hair. It's like they're alluding to the 3 witches kind of concept.
That's right. No, I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
There's so much in that movie. I was just thinking there, because of the nature of what we've been talking about, my mind keeps on fixating on certain points. And one of these points that came up was that they're keeping the cycle of catastrophe going. The way that the ancient Greeks used to reenact the movements of the celestial bodies through these plays dedicated to Hermes, through these theaters, through these amphitheaters, the plays that they would put on, they were trying to reenact the actions of the gods that they were venerating. And these worshippers of catastrophe, of chaos, when they're committing these atrocious acts in these cults and they are doing these sex acts, it's almost as if they're emulating the collisions of the past, the worlds that collided with us, emulating the Venus and Tiamat collisions, emulating the plagues comets bring, inverting all sacred ceremonies of remote antiquity, reenacting that moment of oblivion over and over again and amplifying it to make sure that their little batteries, their little energy lamps that they're feeding from, that they stay in that state. And also, I think I wrote something down and I sent it to you, and it was about how if Jeffrey Walensky is right and that our magnetic field of our planet is de-amplifying slowly, it's losing its magnetic field slowly over millennia, then it would stand to reason that there probably isn't going to be some massive catastrophe in the future like we've seen in the past, because the planet just doesn't have the power to bring that on anymore. If we were to stop these cults from dominating the planet with their global psychological and spiritual inversion, operation of inversion, then we'd be free of catastrophe and we'd be able to come back to some kind of new golden age. But because they keep on reacting these moments of oblivion and catastrophe and creating these manufactured crises like we've just seen with Corona and Ukraine and now the recessions, and it keeps going on. Before that, there was 9/11 and other things that have came after that, the 7/7 bombings in London. There's nothing new under the sun. As long as that black sun's up there, and as long as they keep reminding people that it's there. I know.
Well, if there's one thing that we've revealed as well, if we've revealed one thing in addition to how our power is being used by other people, it's the fact that we actually do have power. Otherwise, they wouldn't be taking it from us. But the first step is realizing your own power and not allowing it to be used for any of those above purposes.
A more frightening thought: we are addicted as a species, and that there's a part of us that's calling out for them to keep creating manufactured crises, to keep doing this stuff behind closed doors, to keep raping children, to keep this whole cycle of enlightenment and oblivion.
That train of thought doesn't dead end at that point, because although you're not wrong, the idea then to move forward would be to take the knowledge that people are addicted or have cravings that exercise them, but sort of the same way that they do with that Wicker Man ritual, but actually tell them what's going on. Be like, it happens.
Not just tell them, but you got to get them to feel it somehow. Remember, people, as you said a few times this week,
better than nothing. Yeah,
people are irrational, and we need something irrational to get through to people. And you were totally right about this, by the way. I really wanted to hit on this point. People are not rational, and you need almost an irrational solution to hit at people in an unconventional way.
Say at a major football game, they just come out and said, had somebody speak for 10 minutes and say that this is like a ritual, and this is kind of like how it's working on you. Okay, have a nice day, enjoy your game, And then it's like it would bring it into the consciousness. You're still going to fucking watch the football game, but at least now you know that you have this impulse that took you there and where it came from.
Sounds like a Bill Hicks skit, doesn't it? Like, oh, by the way, we can all come together and tap into this energy field. Have a nice day. Enjoy the game.
Yep. Basically, I mean, that's really where we're at right now. Like that Bill Hicks thing, the news. When's the last time they just came on and told you all the good news?
Exactly. The amount of times I've fantasized about taking control of the BBC for just 10 minutes and being able to to put on there whatever I wanted and just take it over guerrilla style.
Well,
No,
if we are being energetically fed upon, that's like a parasite. And what happens is that a parasite usually has mechanisms which cause extreme discomfort when its existence is threatened. So if you have gut parasites and you start changing your regimen to flush it out, that parasite is going to start releasing toxins or amplify your cravings for
right.
sugar and whatnot. So it operates like that on the energy level. And if you started dumping truth bombs on people like we are,
Oh yeah.
they're not going to know what the fuck's happening, but they're going to start flipping out. But that's what we're doing anyways, because we don't care. No, I'm just kidding. But seriously though,
I was going to say, let's just put out some solutions out there, some really simple solutions that I try to do in my daily life. I do martial arts. I'm terrible at fighting, but I do martial arts for the discipline to stretch my muscles that never get stretched, to reorientate myself on this very disorientated world. I try to eat right. I try to get out into nature. This all helps. This all helps to clean out your energy field as well. Listening to the right music. I recommend Pantera for a powerful, masculine tone to their sound if you like heavy music. Work hard at something that you love. Do music. Get involved in music any way you can. And art.
If anybody listening is like, what the hell? Y'all were just talking about these cults and crazy people and you're talking about painting or whatever. Well, didn't we just expose that they're getting all their power from your energy? So, yeah, take your energy back, man. Go into nature. Right. Yeah. Pull the battery out. Pull the battery out of the matrix and you're the battery. So
think a little bit more when you go to these monuments in and around these cities and you're like, ooh, that's so nice. Let me take a picture next to it and send it on Facebook and so we can show it off to everybody. It's all novel. It's the novelty. You know, love my novelty. But the fact is, you have so much novelty within you, and that's just dying to be expressed. And even people who say they aren't good at art, they don't have an ounce of art in them or music. I don't think that's true. I think everybody has their own way of getting into it. It's in our blood. It's written into my birth chart. My Chiron is in Gemini, okay? So no wonder I want to heal with my words. No wonder I want to heal with my music. And I exorcise my demons that way as well. Once you start to learn about your own birth chart, you can link it to your art, which is what I'm finding out and getting a feel for how I'm going to do that soon. But yeah, so it's all interconnected. I think Marcus Aurelius said that everything is interconnected. It all leads to the source eventually. I just wanted to put some solutions out there rather than ending it on that sour note that we often come to in these conversations because it's so fucking dark.
Like I said, it was going to be a John Carpenter movie with a happy ending.
You predicted that, bro. I love that. Yeah, there's always so much more I could talk about, but I've had a really good time, Caleb, and I really appreciate you coming on, man. You take care of yourself.
You too.
All right.
Have a good night.